Hi, my name is Les, and I love to embellish board games. So originally, I was going to do this next video using traditional techniques with, paper and pen and cardboard and whatnot. But before Christmas, we got a new printer, an FDM printer. And I wanted to play with it, of course, and see what it could do. So it starts off with a lot of purchases of files or downloads, and you'll see it leads me down this rabbit hole where eventually I experiment with AI, and I get back to an embellishment that I've always wanted to do using the Game of Thrones LCG. The first fun print were castle walls and pieces for Castle Panic. Then I decided to test printing something fairly large, and you'll see this is the dropship from the movie Aliens. Back in 2020, I had printed the APC for the same game, but I always loved the design of the dropship. And here it is to scale with the APC. Next up were replacement pieces for my handmade versions of Amun Sul and Amun Hen for the Lord of the Rings strategy battle miniatures game. I decided to print these because they're much easier to store than some of the foam constructions that I've made over the years. Here are also some river pieces, also for the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. And there's a before and after from when I've primed it to when I've finished painting it. Now, the fun we had playing Castle Panic with the 3D pieces eventually led me to feel comfortable in trying to design my own pieces again. And so I decided to make the walls and the damaged walls for Dead Panic. This in turn led me back to a 2012 game called Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. I had done a three-dimensional Colosseum using foam and cardboard and paper. But the one thing I really wanted to do was to create a rudis, which is a wooden sword inscribed with past victories. And there are some images online which I based the inscriptions on, but they weren't clear enough for me to get everything. So we made up some sayings on the other side and translated them to Latin. So I was pretty impressed by the quality of the prints I was getting from the new FDM printer. And so I decided to go back to the Game of Thrones, the LCG, because back when they made the second edition, they did not do the house cards for the two new factions they added. One was the Night's Watch and the other was House Tyrell. And I've been looking over the years for ways in order to make my own that would mimic the style that the original 6 house cards had, but I was not successful. So all of this playing around with the new printer and checking things online led me to think about using AI. Both in Photoshop to create a 2-dimensional image based on one of the original house cards, and then to take that image and convert it to a 3D object, which with luck will look like a new house card for each of the 2 new factions. When second edition first came out in 2012, I did redo the board, which they had gotten rid of, to reflect the new rules, and also they had removed the use of the statuettes. and also replaced one of the titles, the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, with the Master of Ships. And my wife found at necklace store an anchor that was the perfect size and had the perfect look to it. So it was just a matter of cutting open the King's Guard statuette and gluing in place the anchor. And I think it turned out pretty well. So I started off by taking a photo of one of the original house cards. And my idea was to bring that in, close crop it all the way around, and then use Adobe Photoshop's generative AI to start replacing elements. From there, I would make further adjustments to the brightness and contrast in making it more well-defined to help the AI in converting it to a 3D object. For the Night's Watch faction, using a crow's head and feathers makes the most sense. So that's what I started off with. You can see that there's a limitless possibility in replacing various elements. And the idea is to try and find something that will work in the conversion filters, which you'll see later on. As far as descriptions go, I'm entering text like bas relief, stone, crow head, top-down view, black and white, anything that would help in terms of providing a high contrasty look. The amount of success I find is very much based on trial and error, and ultimately you have to be creative and maybe sometimes think outside the box in choosing the text that you type in for this generative fill. After final retouches in Photoshop, I settled on a few to try in the conversion process. Now that I have an image that I'm happy with, it's time to find a website to convert it to a 3D object. And I've tried about a half dozen different sites, but I'm just going to show you the one that worked the best for me. And it's a site called 3D AI. I'm pretty happy with the conversions, even though they're not perfect. But of course, we can take them into a 3D editing software to polish it up a little bit. Here I'm adding a rectangular base to match the style that's in the original house cards. And for the Night's Watch, I thought maybe adding wings would be interesting, and I found these wings on Thingiverse. next for House Tyrrell, I'm doing the same thing basically, and I'll be using a rose as their main motif since that's their house symbol. And for the bottom section, a wreath of some sort, a lot of vines, maybe something thorny, but it's pretty much the same thing. Once again, there are pretty much a limitless number of possibilities that you can do with this generative AI in order to change the various elements. Here I'm using the dodge and burn tools in order to darken the recesses in the design, and in particular the bottom section, which contains the victory point tokens. In my initial attempts, it stuck out too much, and so I'm trying to trick the AI into thinking that because it's darker, that it's more recessed. The part inside the wreath stuck out too much, and no matter what I tried in Photoshop, I couldn't get the AI to interpret it as being flat and sunken in. But it was easy enough to fix in the 3D modeling software simply by cutting it out and replacing the background with the rectangular base, which I had also done for the Night's Watch version. I wasn't happy with the rose conversion, the top part of this house card, so I found a detailed rose file online, and I'm just simply merging it on top of the existing one. And I've also found a sword file which I can use to duplicate and place on either side, similarly to the way I did with the wings. Here's a couple of photos showing what the new house cards look like after printing. The wings didn't come out very well during the printing process, so I simply trimmed them out, and I will just print the wings separately and glue them on afterwards. And here are the two new faction house cards among the other 6. I just painted them using a monochrome scheme similar to the look of the others. And overall, I'm pretty happy with it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing this journey, and thanks for watching.